awesome, great, glorious day it is. This is the day the Lord has made, and indeed we shall rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Umubanga podcast. Hopefully you're being inspired, you're being transformed, as well as being informed on what's happening. Look, we're all about profiling different people in Zambia, doing great, massive things. And many times the people who are doing great things of great impact to the nation, and there's no light on them. And so our guest today is a substance abuse activist, mental health advocate, and a public health specialist by profession. He once struggled with the mountain of depression, drug and alcohol abuse, but conquered for a decade, and through that has become a source of encouragement for those in the same space. He's the founder of the Sanity House Rehabilitation Center, which helps people struggling with substance abuse and mental health problems. He is one who can be regarded as a hero who does not wear a cape, but wears the armor of faith to move mountains against a limitation. Ladies and gentlemen, give a huge welcome to Mr. Daniel Mbazima. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so very much. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good to have you. Look, you're doing amazing stuff out there, and there's somebody who's watching this for the first time, and then they are hearing you for the first time. So who is Daniel?
It's difficult to introduce yourself after that powerful intro, but yeah. So Daniel Mbazima, like said earlier, I like to say I'm a former addict and a former alcoholic, and I happen to be an addiction recovery coach right now. Yeah, just a simple guy from the humble background of Matero. Troubled past and did a lot of dumb things, but yeah, I'm glad to be here, alive and kicking. So that's pretty much me. Yeah.
Awesome. So look, what you had shared your story, I think, on Facebook. I saw it, but somebody watching this. So what was your story, Luke? As you say, you somebody who's greatly conquered this big disease we have of addiction in terms of drug and substance abuse. So yeah, what was your story? What was your journey like?
So I first experimented with drugs and alcohol when I was in university, and my first drug of choice was alcohol. Yeah, so alcohol is a drug. It's just that a lot of people don't really know about it. So I started off with alcohol, and it's something that I did for fun. I was a medical student. I was studying in Russia then, and it's just something I did over the weekend. Something I did to relieve stress off the hectic medical university, schedule. And it worked out for me. But as time went along, I got to experience certain things that most people didn't experience. Allow me to break down that when we're talking about people that drink, there are actually three classes. So there are people that, can drink socially and can handle the alcohol. Then we have the second classes of people that drink because they lack the support, they lack the skill, lack the education. And as a result, they drink because of extreme poverty. I didn't know that I fall in the third class, so I'm an alcoholic. What that means is I'm unable to control my intake of alcohol. When I drink, my relationships crumble, my finances get affected. What I'm doing, school, work, business, whatever that occupation is, has to go down. My identity, my reputation has to go down. Yep. So I didn't know that I was in the third class. But when I started having issues with alcohol, I just thought, I don't like the hangovers. I don't like blacking out. I don't like remembering. I don't like not remembering anything. So I moved on to something else. I took to heroin, and I enjoyed heroin for a bit. And then I got hooked to cocaine as well, then codeine, and I was pretty much on a bunch of pills. So to break it down, in my fourth year, I got expelled because the school noticed, and, they sat me down and wanted me to work on myself. I got expelled, came back, was given an opportunity to go to a different university to further my studies. I went back, and this time it was different because in my previous university, it was a party thing. I did it with other people, but this time, I chose not to go to the clubs. I chose not to party. But unfortunately, I still continue using. So I got expelled for the second time. Came back to Zambia. It was frustrating, son of a pastor, you leave the country, everybody's looking up to you, you've got good grades, and everybody expecting you to be this doctor guy that went there, and you come back a full-blown junkie. And it became really rough. I was in a position where after coming back, reality kicked in. People that I was supposed to graduate with, came back. I started seeing my friends, my colleagues, get employed. People as down the line were, buying cars, building houses, getting married, going on vacation. Even people that I left back home who were, younger than me, or people that I left back home, former classmates, those that did 4-year courses, they got their life together.
Yeah.
So life became really, really hard. I was in a very depressive state and took to the streets. So I think for 3.5 years, close to 4, my life was in 3 main places. It was either Chainama, Chiwolia, or jail. So that's pretty much part of my struggles and where I'm coming from with the whole addiction thing. Yeah.
Okay, so it pretty much just started out as one.
Yeah, just something to do for fun.
Okay, so you mentioned household son of a pastor. So in terms of the household arrangement, so there's nothing like, maybe troubled background. You know how people say needing a reasons, manja.
Oh yeah. I think for me, I've always been the type of person that used to harbor and hold on to my feelings. Yeah. I would pretend like everything's okay, and I would brush things off and throw them at the back of my mind. Even if something's bothering me, I would just sort of deal with it alone, and that pressure sort of got to me. It's only recently when I knew how to express myself and how to express my emotions, but I used to keep things to myself. That's the first thing. The second thing is I can attribute everything to being bullied. Yeah, so there were instances of me being bullied throughout school, and that mainly contributed to my, trying to seek validation in the wrong places. And in the drug world, in the alcohol world, you will be given the love that you'll be given the validation, and it was just mainly an issue of me feeling good in wrong company, the situation of being a big fish in the small pond. So that's pretty much what I can attribute the causes and conditions of my addiction to.
Okay,
Yeah.
So look, you are caught up, you've had expulsions, you're back here home. How was that? Yes, you're seeing the people you were with, the trauma.
Yeah.
However, at what point did you now make a decision to say, this I need to stop? Because I do understand that when you do something for a long time, it becomes a habit, it forms an addiction now, and your body it gets into that state where you can't live without this specific thing. If you do not drink, if you do not smoke or whatsoever, you can't go by the day properly. So at what point did that kick in?
So I think for a very long time, I wanted to change. Yeah. Just as it happens with most addicts, I really wanted to quit with the drugs and the alcohol and everything, but I just didn't know how to. And just to get in a bit further, I really like the fact that you explain it in such a way, because at times mentally you may want to, but physically it's really hard. Like you said, you formed a habit, you formed an addiction. The easiest example I like to give for people to understand is like, let's say we take you and then we put you in a desert and we ask you to walk as long as you can without an umbrella, without, a water bottle, without food. You're going to get to a point where it's a desert. You're extremely exhausted and you run out of energy. You end up passing out because you've really exhausted our energy. And at that moment, we take you and then we put you in a room like this. And we put a glass of cold water in front of you. And then we ask you to say, you focus on your future, you focus on your family. Even if we say focus on God, it's impossible. Why? Because your body just needs that water. If somebody comes in between you and that water, you can beg, you can cry, you can even fight just to get to that water. Even if you're given lots of money, yes, you'll be excited for a bit, but what your body needs is just that water. So that's pretty much what happens in a person who's struggling with an addiction, because, you get to the point where your body is really, really used to this. And back to the question, my turning point was really when it got suicidal. Because I got to a point where, I didn't want to die, but I didn't know how to continue living. And at some point, it got to a point where I just say, you know what, the only way to get out of this is after I end up, letting go of myself, because I caused so much pain to my family members. I mean, my dad was a pastor, reputable pastor. And I being the firstborn, I caused so much harm to my family. And sometimes when a person is in that suicidal phase, it just feels like, let me just end it all so that when I go, that's when the pain for everybody else will end. So it got to that extent where it was extremely suicidal. And for me, that's when I just said, you know what, let me try one more time. And if I don't get out of this, then, I'm going to end it all. Luckily, that's the time that I had to get into rehab. Yeah.
Okay. So rehab, I guess this was it. So your family sat down and said, we need to do something about this. So were they people noticing to say now you've become suicidal and or?
Mainly my family is very, very supportive, and I'm really, really blessed to, have them in my life. Yeah. They say family is a gift to us and we're a gift to family, but those guys, they're a blessing. Yeah. And what they did is they started reading more about addiction. My parents started reading more about addiction because they went through all these things and they struggled in trying to help me. We come from where we spiritualize. We come from a culture where we over-spiritualize everything, especially in Zambia. Yeah, they're demons, yeah. And there were prayers that were done, but there were no demons that were removed because it's not a demonic thing. It's a psychological thing. And we didn't really have any help in Zambia. We didn't have any rehabs then. So they had to do a lot of digging up until they found a place which was in Zimbabwe. So that's why I had to go for rehab because we didn't have anything here. Yeah.
So Chainama doesn't...
I've been in and out of Chainama, I record 14 times.
Also, before you were taken to a whole rehab center,
I was in and out of Chainama many times, yeah. I think about 14 times.
I guess that even that stigma of going to Chainama, I guess, as well affected the...
Not really. Yeah. Surprisingly, I have a sort of different story because Chainama was my sort of safe haven.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, back in the day, even now, they can only keep you for about 2 weeks. That's just how it is, yeah. So when I went to Chainama, I would be sober during that time, yeah, like for 2 weeks. Then I'll get out, maybe push about a month or so because living and being sober was a really, really serious struggle to me because I didn't know how to. And nobody pretty much ran me through. And everybody else was very ignorant about everything. They was just like, why can't you quit? So I would go for maybe a month, sometimes maybe 2. I think the longest I did was a month and a half, but then I would find myself falling back. Because when we are looking at an addiction, it's people like to focus on the drugs and the alcohol, but then there are causes and conditions of why, people go back. I was really, really depressed and I felt like a lost cause because I had lost many opportunities and picking myself back up was just, it looked so impossible. Like the gap was really, really huge. When a person say finishes school and they're looking for a job, or a person loses a job and they're looking for another one, and that financial stress, that financial pressure, for an addict, it's about 10 times because, there's that stigma that comes around and people are talking about you and everything. So it was because of my depression, I kept falling back into the same cycle all over again. So yeah, Chainama was a breather for me. I would hold it together, but then I would go back. Yeah.
So now you go to Zimbabwe for rehab. How long was that for?
I was there for about 3 months. 3 months. Yeah.
Okay. So that 3 months, you're pretty much in isolation, making sure that no drugs enter your body.
Yeah.
So did that whole 3 months now formulate who you are now? Or you did the 3 months and then came back here, got exposed to a specific environment? Because I can attribute it to say, if you do Chainama and then you are back, you might be triggered maybe with some of your friends or in spaces you find yourself in. So after the rehab in Zimbabwe, did that completely stop?
The last time I actually had something was when I was getting into rehab, and that was the last time I ever had anything. What helped me in rehab was we had a bunch of people who are pretty much doing what I'm doing now. These are people that struggled with addiction. They would come to the rehab house and would have conversations with them. And when I was leaving, despite coming back to Zambia, I left with a great deal of knowledge, a great deal of, advice and wisdom from experienced people. And I pretty much knew how to navigate everything. And the biggest achievement was I got to acceptance. I got to the fact that I looked at myself and I said, I need to pick my life up. And it meant starting from scratch. That was the great deal. So when I came back, I never went back to drugs at all. Never went back to alcohol at all.
Yeah. Okay. So, in other terms, there's also needs to be a willingness to change. Because so if one still goes for rehab and then they're still not willing to change, they still fall back to.
Yes, they still fall back. The biggest problem is many people think rehab does the trick, but it comes from the individual themselves. Yeah. And the way addiction works is even 1% is enough for a person to be convinced. Yeah, because there are certain phases to change. And when a person is in denial, unfortunately, it takes a lot for them to, come out of it. And there are many factors that lead to it. But willingness is one of the major motivators for a person to change. Yeah.
Okay. So how many years was that when you did the rehab in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, that was in 2018.
2018.
Yeah. So I've been sober since then.
6 years.
Yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So if that happens, I do understand that you got multiple expulsions. So immediately you got sober. That was the time you decided to now enroll back to school?
Yes.
Okay. So what was the journey like now? Because look, I do understand in an African setup, your close home might be super supportive, but we're a big family. And then the aunties and uncles are like, but why is it we're still pushing in more money into this person? Because look, you've been to different countries and there's Forex happening and what was that journey like now going back to school?
It was interesting and quite challenging because I went back to school and I was old. Yeah, I was really old. And you know how it is these days. You have young people finishing and whatnot. So I was pretty much the oldest in my class then, and it was a different experience because I was coming from an addiction background, and I would wake up in the morning and my younger siblings are going for work while I have to go to school, and I had to go back to. I wouldn't say high school, but go back to, junior high where you have to wake up and you have to knock for transport. And, basically everything was calculated for me because everybody was sort of careful with my past. I was given exactly transport money. I had to report whenever I, get on a bus and head to town. I had to report when I'm in school. I had to, my parents knew my program, my school program. So they knew where I was coming from and everybody was careful in order for me not to go back. On several occasions, it was also depressing because I would be, walking to school and my friend is driving to work. So that was also another setback. And I would meet people that I was with in school, in high school, and, hey, what are you doing and everything? And these are people that, I had lost contact of. And I would meet them. They'd be like, what are you doing in life and everything? And then, you go like, yeah, I'm in school. So you go like, oh, maybe master's now, maybe PhD. You go like, no, like, and then everybody goes like, I thought you had left. What happened? So it was over explaining myself all over again. But when I went to school, it was a great experience because my classmates were really, really good people. I think it was only later when people got to understand what my story was. But there was always that third eye where people would be wondering, like, what is this big guy doing in class? Like, where is he coming from? There are instances when, lecturers would walk in, that when you're having class for the first time and the lecturer has to give the normal speeches that they give about, work hard and blah, blah, blah. And everybody in here is, young enough to be my child. So I would have instances where lecturers would come in with that very speech to say, all of you are young enough to be my child and everything and stuff like that. And they look around. And they look around, then they see me, then they go like, but that one is my young brother. You get what I mean? Yeah. So it was quite challenging. And I got through it because I had very, very supportive, friends. And above all, I accepted my situation. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I accepted where I was at in life and I had to deal with the reality of it. Yeah.
Okay. So look, you're sober now. I guess you set up Sanity Rehabilitation Center. What caused that? Was it because there was no space around to be able to treat and help people who have gone through a similar situation as you?
So I already had this. I had this idea when I was in rehab. That's in Zimbabwe. Yeah. So Sanity House actually came up in my third year in school, yeah. So when I came back, I had this issue of, I wanted to help out many struggling addicts, many struggling alcoholics, because the people that I used to get high with in my intake, sad to say, some of them passed on. Others, are in prison right now, serving time for various, drug-related crimes. Others are still on the street struggling. And just last week, I saw two of the guys in China, and they've reached a point where, they've exhausted pretty much everything. Like it's a sort of beyond repair type of scenario. Yeah. So those were some of the motivators, because I looked at a lot of people struggling. Not a lot of people could get the chance that I got, which was very rare. So I thought of, coming back and opening something. But, my parents were first on the whole, you need to get your education first, which I'm seeing the benefits of it now. Yeah. So it was part of the thing of, what can I do, looking at what's going on, because we don't have a number of rehabilitation centers right now. I think statistically speaking, I would say maybe we have less than 600 addicts in rehab, while we have over 100,000 addicts countrywide. So the gap is really, really huge. Yeah. I just wanted to sort of contribute and see what I can do to help people struggling as well. Yeah.
Okay. So look, there is like massive stigma for people who go to the mental health rehabilitation centers, drug-related centers, because you'll be like, oh, anafunta. So I end up China, as we put it. Look, we have a lot of people who are in dire need of this. What's one thing you'd want to reach out for people so that we have a lot of people who get the necessary help? Because now the amount of young people doing drugs, like it's massive. We have people in universities partying, and before you know it, they don't even graduate. They didn't even finish because of this massive drug abuse. And if they were to get help, they'll be like, no, but if I go to this place, a lot of people will call me mad, or all these names. So there's that huge stigma. How do we get around it so that a lot of people get help? Because look, you've brought the stats. You have 600 people, but you have over 100,000 people who need that help.
So I have always been preaching one thing. I'm very, very passionate about mental health. And for me, one thing I'd like to point out to is right now, if we were to call a 10-year-old kid and ask them what they'll do when they cut themselves, or if they cut themselves, or if they have an injury, a 10-year-old child would tell you and say, hey, look, I can use, painkillers. If it's severe, I can, if it's a cut, I have to clean the wound, wash the wound. I can use a Band-Aid. If it's too severe, I can go to the hospital and see a clinician. People know what to do. A 10-year-old child knows what to do, and they know what type of medication to take when their stomach hurts. Pretty much everybody knows what sort of medication to take when they're having a headache. They know what to do when they have an injury. What I'm trying to get at is, for a very long time, everybody knows what to do as far as physical health is concerned, which is why the older you grow, the lesser the physical injuries you have. But what increases, on the other hand, are psychological injuries. Injuries such as rejection, injuries such as disappointment, injuries such as, heartbreaks. All these injuries keep increasing. And as a result, people crumble and they choose to pick to different addictions. So my message is, we need to balance up physical health and mental health as well. The same way people do physical checkups is the same way people need to do mental checkups. And like I said earlier, when we're looking at an addiction, it's just a symptom of what really is going on. There's something that a person is struggling with. I will tell you right now that the most common addiction that we have is not alcohol and drugs. Okay. It's the most visible addiction because it can be seen, and because it's got a physical, characteristic to it. You're able to say, okay, this person is struggling with alcohol, this person, through their behavior. And it's so stigmatized because you can see, and you're not proud of what you're seeing. It's not a pleasurable thing to look at. But the number one addiction among youths is pornography, sex, and masturbation.
Okay.
And because these things are done in the hidden, it's very difficult for people to know. But that's the number one thing that a lot of people are struggling with. The fastest rise in addiction right now is gambling. So before we used to talk about there are churches everywhere and then there are bars everywhere. But now we have these gambling sites everywhere. Yeah. And these things are all over, like in terms of social media and pretty much everything. So what I'm trying to get at is anybody can get addicted to anything. And unfortunately, others even say we're always addicted to something. Like each and other person, every other person is addicted to something. Food is on the rise. But if you're going to look across age groups, you're going to look at adults, young people, and, you know, the youngest of people. Yeah. Social media addiction is real. Yeah. People can, like, you would go for a Zambian workshop and just last week, somebody from Europe was saying, you know, I don't know what's up with Zambians. Like, you guys can't survive without the phone. He's just pretty much itching to see what's going on online and whatnot and stuff like that. Yeah. So everybody is open to, you know, being an addict, and it's possible for every single person to happen. But in as much as we can talk about the effects, also the biggest problem is the mental capacity to handle the stresses and the pressures of life. So that's one thing that I always advocate for. We need to strike a balance between mental health and physical health as well. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting stats. Interesting to note that pornography and now gambling are the biggest thing. Anyways, because they've been sold as the cool thing.
Exactly.
It reminds me of how movies had dealt with cigarettes and drinking of alcohol as a classy thing to do. So yeah. Interesting. So Sanity House, how long has it been in operation, and how does one get to come through if they decide to get help? Yeah.
Okay. So this is our third year now. Yeah. This is our third year. And last year was our successful year. Yeah. We hit over the 75% mark, which is unheard of. Yeah. So with our center, we have three types of services. We have inpatient as well as outpatient services. So we don't only attend to people struggling with substance abuse addiction, but we deal with people that are struggling with various types of addictions. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, there's the pornography and gambling and other things as well. Then we also have services that help in terms of, you know, psychological therapy and help as well, because at a certain time, everybody's just going to have a breakdown and you need somebody to talk to. And we have professionals that are there in that field that offer therapeutic services. And we also have aftercare services, which is when a person is done with our program and they also come to you. So we have a variety of services, which include, you know, attending to school-going children, you know, we speak in churches, and we're just passionate about mental health. That's pretty much the work that we do at Sanity House.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of somebody coming through, do they need to subscribe or fill up something?
Not necessarily. We've made it very, very easy. So you can get in touch with me, and we have a page on Facebook as well called Sanity House. And from there, our contact is very, very open. Yeah. And so you can easily get in touch, and we'll respond. Yeah. So we have a line specifically for phone calls, and we know even if you beep, we'll call you back. Yeah, because we understand how serious it is. Yeah.
Okay. Another thing, you mentioned that you grew up in a Christian household. So even through the rehabilitation process, so do you as well now instill some of the Christian values which you hold on to?
When you look at addiction, it's a three-way thing. Yeah. So there is the mental,
because the reasons why I'm asking that is, look, Zambia is predominantly Christian, and you know how we are rigid on certain things. Yeah. So you have aspects of certain sect of society which will say that we can only take him this side if there will be somebody who will pray over them and then teach them the ways of the Lord. So that's my asking. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when you look at addiction, it's a three-way thing. There is a spiritual aspect, the mental aspect, and the physical aspect. Yeah. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, we like to over spiritualize everything. You cannot pray stress away. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. You can do something to relieve the stress through the prayer, but unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And the thing is, many people need to realize that certain things just have a way to be dealt with.
Yeah.
I'm coming to you with a very Christian background and somebody who's Christian myself, but I will tell you to say, you need Jesus and a therapist too. You need to talk to God and talk to man as well. So we cannot just base a certain aspect of, psychological help and say this is the way forward without considering the Christian, the spiritual part, sorry. So I do not impose what I believe on my people. But I do guide them into the fact that, yes, there is a spiritual aspect in our treatment in itself. So I don't impose my beliefs on people because we have different denominations. And lately there's a lot of confusion in the Christian realm. A lot of papas and shani. So there's all that drama going on, but there is a spiritual aspect.
And look, I'm asking that because somebody will say, oh, the grandfather used to drink a lot, so that's why he's drinking as well. So it's like a bloodline thing which was passed down.
That's with genetics. That's true. That happens.
Also, that happens.
Addiction runs in the family. Actually. Okay. Addiction runs in the family. For every addict, you would find that there is a trace of addiction in the family, and it's always been there. It's just that it's manifested in certain people. We could have an instant where you have two people, same backgrounds, but one person instantly gets addicted. So it goes back with genetics as well. So that is there. It's purely an addiction. If it wasn't Kanyolowela, I think our people who don't do Volowalo wouldn't have had it. But addiction is worldwide.
Okay. Interesting. I've greatly enjoyed this and getting to learn more about all this. It at least clears a lot of trash information I had. So look, there's somebody here who will be watching this and they're battling in I don't know the addiction they're battling with, but I would want you to speak to them so that if they can get the necessary help so that we have a better society. As you've said, that if it runs in the family, so it means that if one person breaks the cycle, even the next generation can be saved. So
my message to somebody going through an addiction is everybody goes through a crisis in life. Right now, as we're speaking, somebody lost their job, another person lost their child, another person is in an abusive relationship. It's life, it happens. So you're going through something in your life as well. And I'd like you to know that it's a process. Don't make certain decisions that will make that process permanent. And in my position, I was able to go through it. And you're not the only one. There are a lot of people struggling with addiction. And there are a lot of people in recovery. And you too can do it. And you don't have to give up because there's hope and there's help now. So it's very, very possible for you to get your life together. Get in touch. We're more than willing to help. And I would like to say, recovery, which is staying free from drugs and alcohol, has given me everything that drugs and alcohol promised me. So you too can get your life together.
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so very much. I'm really, really grateful.
Awesome.
Great.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking to Mr. Daniel Mbazima. Well, look, this is a great, inspiring story. And it's a reminder that so long as we are alive, God has given us an opportunity to be transformed into his likeness. And I urge you and encourage you to say, whatever you're dealing with, look, there's help, there's Sanity House, there are different spaces. You can get the necessary help. All you need to do is decide to say, hey, I need change. I need to be transformed. I need to be better. So from me, Dennis Umubanga, it's bye-bye.